down there.
I want to
This meeting is being recorded.
welcome everyone for being here. I hope you get adjusted quickly to the new seating arrangement. It's similar to what we use for CRTPA, so we thought we would give it a try and see how it works. But I want to welcome everybody here this afternoon. Thank those that are joining us in the audience. We've got two members that will be joining us by audio, by telephone, Commissioner Cummings, and who was the other?
Commissioner O'Keefe.
Oh, yeah, Commissioner O'Keefe. And so we'll need a motion at the appropriate time to allow them to participate in that way. All right, well, we'll call the meeting to order right at 3 p.m. Again, welcome to everybody to be here. Are there any agenda modifications at this point?
No, sir. The only agenda modification you actually identified, which is if you would entertain a motion to allow the two commissioners that are on WebEx to
Second.
All right, there's a motion by Commissioner Maddox, seconded by Commissioner Matlow. Any questions, any objections? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. The motion carries unanimously. And they both are on already?
Yes, I believe they both are.
Okay, Commissioner Cummings, could you verify that you're on? Commissioner Cummings? Commissioner O'Keefe, are you there? Hello.
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm here, Commissioner. This is Commissioner O'Keefe. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Well,
Yeah.
is he going to check to see if? Okay,
He
all
will,
right.
But I had heard.
Oh, okay,
just
all
a
right.
few moments ago.
All right, so
Yes, sir.
we're going to move on with the agenda. Are there any citizens to be heard at this point?
Just a notice to those that are in the audience, if you wish to speak, there's, I think, cards in the back. Mr. Chairman, nobody signed up to participate or provide comment by WebEx as of last night,
Okay.
and there were no written comments. Do we have any citizens to be heard cards?
No, sir. I thought you wanted item 4, sir.
Not during this section.
Okay. Item 4 is consent. Okay. All right. Informational items. And do we
Yes.
have any at this point?
Technological
Okay.
issues here. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, you do have some informational items in receipt and file. They're all there before you. There's no action that's required by the
Okay. Any questions from anyone on the informational items? Okay. Hearing none, we will move on to item number 4, consent.
Move consent. Second.
There is a motion by Mayor Daley, seconded by Mayor, Mayor. I just gave you a promotion, Commissioner Welch. Now, we do have a speaker on, oh, that's on item 4, I'm sorry.
Right.
There's a motion and a second. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, like sign.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously. We heard you, Commissioner O'Keefe. Thank you. All right, we're moving right through this agenda.
Yes, sir.
I love it.
Okay.
All right, item 5, general business. Item number 4, acceptance of the disparity study update.
Thank you very much, and I'm going to be very quick. You can see the one general business item that's before you. At a high level, you may recall a few years ago, we came back with a 5-year disparity study update. You accepted that, you acted on it. Part of those actions, all of this will be reviewed, of course, by the experts to my left. But you helped raise, you did a few things at that time. You gathered, for the first time ever, a joint set of aspirational goals and targets to increase minority-owned and women-owned businesses actually getting procurements, and those numbers have been positive. But at that time, you also listened to other voices in the community. Again, you'll hear more about this, and said we want to get new data, 4 new years ultimately that were reviewed, add it to the prior 5, and see are we doing all that we can to grow those minority, women-owned, and small businesses. And without further ado, or taking too much more of their thunder, happy to turn it over to Keith Bowers.
Thank you, Ben. Good afternoon, Commissioners, Mayor Daley.
Yeah.
I'm pleased to introduce item number 4 on the agenda for your consideration. The 2022 updated disparity study conducted by MGT builds on the minority, woman-owned business, small enterprise business utilization data captured in the 2019 disparity study. The 2019 disparity study analyzed MWSBE utilization during fiscal years 2012 through 2017. The updated study analyzes MWSBE utilization during fiscal years 2018 through 2022, therefore capturing 9 years of MWSBE utilization data. The updated disparity study also makes 6 recommendations and examines the feasibility of establishing a separate aspirational goal for African American-owned firms. OEV's goal is to use this information gathered from the updated disparity study to inform our policies, practices, and procedures and enhance our efforts as the economic development leaders in Tallahassee-Leon County to ensure economic diversity, equity, and inclusion. The MWSBE department engages in this work daily. Their work focuses on strategies laid out in your approved strategic plan. Most specifically, the MWSBE division under the leadership of OEV's Deputy Director, Darrell Jones, works to support the development and retention of MWSBEs through certification, education, and procurement facilitation. So without any further ado, I'd like to introduce Deputy Director Darrell Jones, who will introduce the MGT team.
Right.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Madam Vice Chair, Board of Directors. I'm happy to present to some and introduce to others our disparity study consultants with MGT of America. Today we have attorney Andres Bernal, a product of this community, a FSU grad, Lynn High School graduate, who's returned to us, and of course, Dr. Fred Seaman, the recently retired Executive Vice President of MGT of America, and both are welcome guests to our meeting today. As you may be aware, Dr. Seaman and MGT has performed every disparity study this community has had for nearly 2 decades for both the city and the county, and now the disparity studies since we've consolidated the MWSBE offices. I also want to take this moment to acknowledge the support and review of colleagues from all 3 jurisdictions, including Autumn Calder, Daniel Shear, Shalonda Meeks, Attorney Susan Dawson, Attorney Jamelyn Pettaway, and my fellow staff persons in legal, purchasing, procurement, and finance and budget from the city and the county, and my teammates Shanae Wilkes and Latanya Raffington, and our director Keith Bowers, who constituted an internal work group that reviewed the updated study throughout the course of its work. As you will hear, we also had our consultants to engage with the MWSBE Citizen Advisory Committee and the 2 minority chambers of commerce. Board members, please know that with your guidance, our MWSBE division and supplier diversity program is one of only 2 in the entire state of Florida that has legally defensible aspirational goals from multiple jurisdictions, and secondly, has its supplier diversity program housed in the local economic development organization and is governed by consolidated policies to guide the program. All of this has been at your direction. Dr. Seaman and Attorney Bernal will describe the impact that your decisions have made since the 2019 disparity study and how MWBE utilization has steadily increased even during the COVID years. Now, with these recommendations coming from our consultants, the existing direction you have given this program can be strengthened further through compliance and monitoring and increasing the utilization of minority and women-owned firms to create more jobs in our local economy. So, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Fred Seaman and attorneys Andres Bernal with MGT.
Dr. Seaman, welcome.
Yeah.
We go way back, and you're retired now.
Yes, we do.
Thanks for joining the club.
Good afternoon, board members. It's a real pleasure to be here with you this afternoon. And I'm not just saying that because that's what you're supposed to say when you do one of these. And before we get into presenting the results of the study, I want to make a few comments. First, I want to commend OEV, and in particular, Darrell Jones, Keith Bowers, Mrs. LaTanya Rafferty, and Shanae Wilkes, and the MWSBE Advisory Committee, the work group, and city, county, and Blueprint staff for the support and cooperation that we've gotten on this study from start to finish. It's been outstanding and tremendous. And from me and Andrea's perspective, the reason that's so important is because we don't always get the kind of support and cooperation that we've gotten conducting this study. So I really want to commend them. The Supreme Court case, Croson versus the City of Richmond in 1989 on disparity studies and the need to conduct studies, which are very complex and data-driven, tightly constrained by case law, and the requirement to be legally defensible. Some 30 years after the Croson versus the City of Richmond decision, there are only 5 or 6 firms nationally that conduct these studies. And it's a testament to just how complex and detailed and legally defensible these studies must be. Only 5 firms nationally conduct these studies. And MGT, of course, is one of those 5 firms. We directed the City of Tallahassee's very first disparity study in 1990. And since 1990, MGT has conducted well over 200 disparity studies all around the country. We have the distinction of conducting the largest state study for the state of Texas, which involved 215 separate state agencies. We have the distinction of conducting the largest city disparity study for New York City that included billions of dollars in public spend. In fact, more public spend in New York City than some states have. And finally, I want to mention, we've got the distinction of recently completing the disparity study for the City of Richmond, who started all of this, but they just did their first disparity study, which is kind of ironic. So that's the kind of experience that we bring to this. And more so than anything else, these studies are designed to foster economic inclusion. And I want to mention the fact that you have a minority, women, and small business enterprise programs embedded in OEV and the economic development function in this community is huge, because you really don't see that in very many places. It is huge. I want to turn my attention quickly to Andreas Bernal. Andreas is the Vice President of our Performance Solutions Group. As Mr. Jones mentioned, he's a Tallahassee native. Been doing this for about 15 years. Most importantly, he's an attorney, and on many occasions, he's kept me out of legal hot water, which I appreciate very much. But he's a disparity study case law expert, and which is extremely important given the legal constraints and the defensibility of these studies. And Andreas is also a nationally recognized disparity methodology expert. And so he's going to take us through most of the results of our study this afternoon, but I'm going to try to get to the first slide without. As Mr. Jones mentioned, we completed a disparity study that included the city of Leon County and Blueprint in 2019. And prior to that, we had done about 3 other studies in this From this study, it's important that the MWSB policy was facilitated, which has had a significant impact on the utilization of minority and women-owned businesses in this community. And this board, back in December 2020, entered into discussions and negotiations with MGT regarding an update to the 2019 disparity study, which we executed a contract, I think, in February 2021. And since then, we've been working closely with the city, county, Blueprint, work group to get this disparity study done that we're going to walk you through this afternoon. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Andres Bernal.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Seaman, and good afternoon, board members. I do like to remind, first of all, Dr. Seaman, that I've been doing this since 2003, way back when him and I were part of the MGT's basketball team for the city, or the City League. So we've been doing this way back together. So as Dr. Seaman said, what I want to go through first before we get to results is some of the tasks that we did. It's very important to understand the tasks that we went through for the study, the methodology, and some of the enhancements that have been made prior to this update being finished. So the first thing that I will talk to you about today is just overall the tasks that we did. Particularly for this study, we looked at data 2018 to 2021 for the three entities, City of Tallahassee, Leon County, and Blueprint. The thing, though, that I really want to kind of foot stomp on this is that we're looking at all of the years. From 2019 through now, we're going to be comparing how utilization has been impacted in all those years. So we did update 2018 through 2021, but a lot of our recommendations are holding from the previous study. We analyzed the new task that we did for this study is analyzing P-card data for all three agencies. That was for 2018 through 2021. We're going to talk a little bit about the importance of P-cards, and especially for OEB. We analyzed the use of good faith efforts as they were available for the three entities. Then we did what we call a benchmarking to other MWSBE programs throughout the region and similar programs to the OEV program. We reviewed, like I mentioned, staffing to understand where they are. And then, of course, we placed recommendations to include the feasibility of African-American MBE specific aspirational goals. So before we get to the methodology, I want to kind of talk a little bit about the enhancements that kind of trickle down into this study. That bottom bullet point should actually be the first thing that we talk about. OEV has made great strides. You don't see this a lot of times. And a lot of the times we work, it's just a check mark that a lot of entities do. They do a study, they say they're great, and then they put it in their shelf. OEV really should be commended for using the study, using the recommendations from the study to enhance the MWSBE policies. So a few of the recommendations or a few of the enhancements that have been made, especially since 2019 disparity study, and some of them have even been before that, is first, they addressed recommendations from the February 24th, 2001 10-point plan that was presented by the Big Bend Minority Chamber of Commerce and Capital City Chamber of Commerce. A lot of the work that has been done in all of these policies, and these are bullet points 2 through 3 and even 4, is bringing in MWBEs to the beginning of the process, not just being subcontractors that a prime contractor uses whenever there's a contract, but involving them throughout the whole life of the contract and the whole life of the procurement procedure. So integrated into the solicitation process on the very front end, which enables OEV to provide guidance and assistance to facilitate participation and utilization of MWSBEs. Based on our policy recommendations regarding mandatory pre-bid meeting, there have been vast improvements to that process to include the strengthening of good faith efforts. And we're going to talk a little bit more about what good faith efforts mean in a few slides. Solicitation development meetings are being held for all solicitations with project managers across all three entities. And this has created greater transparency for all vendors that flow through the OEB office. And then last, solicitation development meetings are used to engage conversation about specifications and availability to align aspirational goals with the realities of the availability in the marketplace. And one of the things I also want to kind of hit on is that recommendations we make are specific to the Tallahassee and Leon County community. This is not going to work in any other communities we see. This is specific to our community. So before we get to results, just kind of, I know we talked a little bit about the utilization methodology, but we can't say enough about it, it's a legally defensible methodology that has been accepted in the 11th Federal Circuit. All of these programs, if anything happens, they go up into federal circuits. 11th Federal Circuit is where Florida resides, as I stated here. The thing I do want to say is that this methodology is based on a sampling of all of the procurements for the 3 entities. So it's going to differ a bit from what the city, county, and Blueprint reports. And also it is based on procurements that are considered competitive in nature. As we talked about, expenditures are from fiscal years 2018 through 2021, and we analyze procurements in construction, A&E, professional services, other services, and materials and supplies. Now to really get into some of the fun topics of it, the results. One of the things you're going to see, and we're going to hammer this when we talk about the aspirational goals, is utilization. How has utilization been impacted in the past few years for MWBEs across the community? One of the things, and I can't say this enough, is utilization has increased for MWBEs in the years that we have analyzed. So from the 2019 to 2022, when you see the comparison, including the years that with COVID, utilization has increased for MWBEs. Specifically, we see for the City of Tallahassee, African Americans and non-minority women, their utilization has increased significantly. When you look at Blueprint and Leon County, for Blueprint, it's almost nearly tripled in the size of utilization. And for Leon County, overall, it's gone from 12.20% to 18.54%. So you see that a lot of the recommendations that have already been implemented in the 9-year period that we're talking about have resulted in the increased utilization of MWBEs across the board. So as we talked about P-card analysis, and this is another one that's very important, and this is a topic that we really want to commend OEB and the IA board for exploring, is not many entities even talk about P-card analysis, but that is a missed opportunity to really involve MWBE and small businesses. The reason for it is it's hard to really understand who the entities do business with. But I want to commend OEB and the IA board for it, because they are actually enhancing their B2G Now program to allow for the monitoring of P cards in their reporting system. That is rarely done in any of the studies that we ever seen. The other aspect that you'll see in your packet, you'll see the actual results. We won't go through them here, but one of the things that I do want to kind of put to scale is that for the 3 entities, P-card spending represents almost 8% of all spend. So right now, it is a small spend. The utilization results that we do get, they will increase once P-card monitoring is fully implemented in the B2G Now system. But currently, the utilization is in par with what we see when there is no monitoring fully in place. So now to the consolidated goals. And this kind of feeds in from what is available to do business in your community and the utilization results that we're seeing. What we did is, to determine the feasibility, and what we analyze is the current aspirational goals and then the 9 years of data to see if there was any need to adjust these MBE and WBE goals. Our recommendation is that the goals should remain where they are. It is the best way to really allow for flexibility and allow the increase of the utilization that we have seen. Once again, this is this should be looked at in the lens of the community that we're within and not comparing it to anybody else. The other aspect that I want to mention with this is these goals are what we would consider, high for what the utilization is. When you start breaking them out in the data that shows it for the city, if you were to break them out into individual aspirational goals such as African American, Hispanic Americans, you would have the likelihood of those groups' utilization dropping. So these goals being higher than they are naturally will allow there to be flexibility and allow that increased utilization. The next couple of slides, there's a lot here. I'm not going to dive into the actual numbers, but there's going to be a few things that I want to say. First of all, what we should be looking at here, and we talked a little about it, is we looked at not only just regional agencies that are comparable to OEVs such as Pensacola, Orange County, but we also looked at some more mature programs such as Atlanta, Georgia, Philadelphia, and what we're seeing is OEV is doing a lot that it can be comparable to a size community like Atlanta, Georgia. In the next slide here, you're going to see that it is on par to some of these big ones, including the recent staffing changes of two new members. So what all of this is saying is that OEV is doing great to make themselves comparable and really reach out to that community across the board. Now, the good faith efforts, before we get into some of the recommendations that we kind of came out of the study, good faith efforts analysis. First, just to kind of define what a good faith effort is they're documented actions by a contractor intended to identify and utilize minority and women-owned businesses. Good faith efforts are not a means to forego the utilization of MWSBEs, but rather increase their utilization, especially within subcontracting opportunities. On April 1st, 2021, and this is important, all three agencies consolidated their MWSBE policies under the purview of OEV. And then under the consolidated policy, a minimum of 5 activities must be documented to prove good faith efforts. One of these, and we talked about it before, is pre-bid or pre-proposal meetings for all vendors. Now, to get to some of the recommendations that are coming out of the study, like I mentioned before, aspirational goals for individual groups such as African American owned businesses is not recommended. The reason for that is even with COVID present, utilization for all MWBEs increased in the last 9 years. Because of that, current goals should remain to ensure that continued high level of MWBE utilization, and setting specific goals for African American owned firms may actually have the negative effect of reducing utilization, as I talked about before. Some of the additional recommendations, some of the additional ones that we have here, they're all aimed at furthering the development and utilization of underrepresented vendors in the community. We have seen studies after studies showing that when you have an equitable community, you're going to have economic vitality. So these are recommendations that will hopefully increase the utilization of these underrepresented vendor communities. That includes continued mandatory pre-bid meetings, subcontractor inclusion pre-bid meetings, advertisement assistance, written notices and follow-ups to MWSBEs, implementing a rotation system for firms that are able and capable to do work for the community, and then right to audit language in contracts. With that, I will turn it over back to Mr. Jones to talk about next steps in the study.
Directors, if this updated disparity study and its recommendations are approved, what we will then immediately begin doing is, one, we'll first start to work on incorporating those recommendations into updates to the consolidated MWSBE policy for consideration by all 3 governing bodies, subsequently updating the purchasing policies for the city, the county, and Blueprint. This action will require the ongoing collaboration with the persons that we described at the very beginning, who constitute the internal work group, persons from purchasing, representatives from the legal department, to make certain that the recommendations that we've come forth with policy are defensible and would meet the standard of meet the standard of the law. The updated consolidated policy will be presented to all 3 jurisdictions for their respective analysis and future consideration and approval. We'll also continue to work with the City of Tallahassee for the full integration of B2G Now as a contract compliance software for all 3 jurisdictions and finalize the capture of P-card transactions across all 3 jurisdictions to include the processes and policies by which we govern the capture of that information. So those would be our next steps if approved.
Okay. What we're going to do first is hear from those who have signed up to speak. Do we have any speakers, Ms. Pingree?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Our first speaker is Antonio Jefferson, followed by Stanley Sims, and then George Johnson.
Okay. Mr. Jefferson, if you'd give us your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes to make your presentation.
Yes, sir. Antonio Jefferson, President and CEO of the Big Bend Minority Chamber of Commerce, address 528 East Park Avenue. First, Mr. Chair and commissioners, and I want to thank you, right, because what you have demonstrated through this process is that you're listening to the voices of this community regardless of where they come from, and you're taking the moment. I wish this chamber was full today, as it's been on some of the other key issues that you have considered as sitting as the IA board. Today is a day of celebration in my mind, because what we have realized is that we are doing a great job for what we have to work with. We recognize that there's always means for improvement, but you're totally engaged in ensuring that we're doing the best we can for all those in this community. I want to thank Ben, Christina Paredes, who's now gone, Keith now, Daryl Jones, and the entire OEV team for keeping the chambers involved and engaged in this process as we navigated through this information. I also want to thank Commissioner Proctor, who also insisted that we include, or MGT include 2021 data so that we clearly understood post-COVID, or at least as close to post-COVID period as we could, that we weren't just looking at what was happening during COVID, which might have resulted in something looking a little bit different as it relates to the results that occurred prior to the update. And lastly, I'd like to thank MGT for your honesty, for your commitment to keep the chambers as well informed as you navigated through this process. We recognize that we weren't your client, however, that we are an important community contributor to the success of what's before this commission today. So as I take my seat, Mr. Chairman and members, again, I want to thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Your jobs are tough. Some issues that come before you are much tougher than the one that we have, but this one is a key issue because, you know, Katrina and I, and I'm sure she'll speak on behalf of the Capital City Chamber, you know, we hear from our members and they raise a lot of concerns to us, some of which, you know, we have to say, let's be reasonable, but the majority of which are right on point. But at the same time, as we've advanced those issues to you, you've listened, and today is a result of your listening and the results that you create as a result of your policy decisions to create a great place to live, work, and play. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Jefferson. Our next speaker.
Stanley Sims, followed by George Johnson, then Katrina Tuggerson.
Okay, Mr. Sims, if you'd give us your name and address for the record, and we'll give you 3 minutes.
My name is Stanley Sims. I'm at 1320 Avondale Way. I am a minority business owner. And I think that Mr. Antonio Jefferson's words are quite accurate for the setting. We have come out some very big challenges. We faced some very big monsters in this economic as a small businessman. But I'm very pleased to say we're on the right road. I can actually see the improvements in our community. I'm very glad that the leadership of this dais and board is offering more support to our chambers so that they can give better support to us. A lot of you guys know, if I don't like something, I don't have a problem saying it. but I've noticed the turn in the direction and the leaderships in our three chambers. They're very focused now. And I also see that these three chambers are working together in a more collaborative effort. And they're not just bringing us stuff to bring us stuff, but we're having substantive meetings and workshops. Also, what is happening? The chambers are really defining the essence and the crucial need to collaborate. Real collaboration. So I'm excited. I really am. If I could see something a little bit more better. Well, one more thing I would also like to know. I think that the chamber is being realistic with us as small businessmen because we are telling folks we don't have grants. We will show you how to write proposals. So maybe this way has pushed us from looking for, and maybe those words are not, the competitive funding. And so, and I think that under the leadership that we have, Mr. Pettigrew, Mr. Byers knows preparing proposals require a certain skill level. And getting those skill levels out on the street is something that, a role that our chambers are doing. I'm so excited. I went to a procurement boot camp meeting, and they feed us too. They don't just teach us, they feed us. So I'm excited about that. But I just want to say to this commission and also to Mr. Keith Byers, Mr. Ben Pettigrew, we're on the right road. I do see the positive effect with our small businesses. We are excited, but I don't know if they're going to say this, but if you can give them a little bit more money, because we really need technical assistance in filling out these grant process, the proposal processes.
Thank you, Mr. Sims. Our next speaker.
George Johnson, followed by Katrina Tuggerson, then
Okay.
Tracy Cohen.
Welcome, Mr. Johnson. If you'd give us your name and address for the record.
George Johnson, Johnson Milner Engineering, 1725 Capitol Circle Northeast, Suite 301. I'm coming to you as a certified minority business owner, also a Minority Women Small Business Enterprise Citizen Advisory Committee Chair, Vice Chair, just to show my support for this initiative. And I'm proud that we are, as a city, trying to look at this to try to help an underserved part of the community to become more served part of the community and give back. Again, I want to show my support for this disparity study, and thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Our next speaker.
Next is Katrina Tuggerson, followed by Tracy Cohen, then Pamela Jones-Smith. Name and
Ms.
address for the
Tuggerson.
record, please.
Well, I got to come up here smiling today, following behind Mr. Jefferson and Mr. Sims there and the vice chair. But I'm going to start with what Mr. Sims said, we need more money. But I just want to say, like I said last week when we had the procurement boot camp that Mr. Sims mentioned, I want to say thank you to my chamber sister, Sue Dick, and also my chamber brother. And we call each other and can text each other, and we can see that we try to work collaboratively. But it takes both of the commissions and also Mr. Ben Pingree. I can text him. We don't talk much. I don't talk to anybody too much. I just text, and I appreciate everybody responding. With that being said, the collaboration that has come forth in these last couple of years have been strong. The community feels it. We had an opportunity to sit with OEV the 1st of January when Mr. Bowers took seat, and he said, I want to hear from the chambers, and we had an opportunity to share with him what we was working on. It takes years. Anytime you attack anything of a despair in a minority community, you don't see it overnight. And so what we're working on is not overnight results, but we are feeling hope, and the community's feeling hope, and they're seeing it. Thank you again.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Tuggerson. Our next speaker.
Tracy Cohen, followed by Pamela Jones-Smith, and then Christique Henry. Name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Tracy Cohen. I'm the president and owner of Target Print and Mail. and we're located at 2843 Industrial Plaza Drive here in Tallahassee. I'm the chair of the MWSBE Citizen Advisory Committee. Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you so much for having us here today. As the chair of the MWSBE CAC, I am happy to report on behalf of our committee members. On December 10th, 2022, MGT of America reported its findings and recommendations from the disparity study. There was a consensus from our group that the recommendations they made, once turned into policy, would help minority and women-owned businesses by strengthening the requirements for good faith efforts to be more inclusive. This was of particular concern for construction-based business owners. The Citizen Advisory Committee also believes strongly that the recommendations will give businesses more tools to optimize MWBE utilization. For example, the recommendation to allow subcontractors to participate in pre-bid meetings will be a game changer, providing the space to build better and stronger relationships between subcontractors and contractors is how we create opportunity and growth. Finally, the MWSBE CAC recommends approval of the 2002 updated disparity study. Our committee would also like to acknowledge Keith Bowers and Daryl Jones for their engagement, for seeking input of our committee, and for addressing our concerns. Thank you for your time and for recognizing the importance of minority women and small businesses in our community.
Thank you, Ms. Cohen. Our next speaker.
Pamela Jones-Smith, followed by Christique Henry. Name and address for the record, please.
Good afternoon. I am Pamela Jones-Smith, and I am President and CEO of Bernexus Construction and Development. I am a 100% woman-owned certified general contractor and roofing contractor here in the city. And I just have a question. I wasn't able to make it to the boot camp meeting. I was out of town. But I wanted to find out, as a 100% woman-owned contractor, why I cannot be a woman-owned business. I was told that I guess I didn't fit whatever that was, but I'm a 100% woman-owned business, but I cannot get that designation, and I really would like to know why. Can anybody answer that?
If we could have staff get with you afterwards. We're not here to answer questions this afternoon, but we'll have staff reach out to you
Okay,
and get you
that was
that
my
information.
question. Okay, thank you all.
It's a very legitimate question, so we'll make sure you get the information that you need.
Okay, thank you very much.
All
You all
right.
have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Ms.
And Ms. Jones, I'd like for you to let me know what you heard from our staff. Bill Proctor talking.
Our final speaker is Christique Henry.
I'm just going to ask Mr. Pingree, would you make sure that there is follow-up with Ms. Jones?
Absolutely.
In that respect.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Our next speaker.
Hey, y'all. I'm Christique Henry. I reside at 3121 Pontiac Drive. I am here speaking on behalf of Community Lift Institute and the Black Developer, Contractor, and Investor Alliance that Community Lift Institute facilitates on behalf of the community. Community Lift Institute is a grassroots alliance of Black contractors, investors, and developers working together to advocate for initiatives that focus on supporting industry and investment that lifts our neighbors and neighborhoods, eliminates racial and socioeconomic gaps in home and community, in neighbors and neighborhoods. Oh gosh, I can't read. Okay, eliminates racial and socioeconomic gaps in home and community ownership and works in partnership with neighborhood and community associations in historically disinvested neighborhoods to transform blighted properties into useful spaces. The purpose of the Black Developer, Contractor, and Investor Alliance is to organize support for Black and brown investors, developers, contractors, and builder advocates, to craft and execute an equity in place agenda that supports equitable inclusion and opportunity goals for Black developers, contractors, and investors in the areas of public and private housing development, government contracting, and commercial development, and to develop strategic public-private partnerships that provide focused business professional development for Alliance members. I would like to, first of all, thank you all for the approach that you've taken with your Mentor Protege program that was launched at the foot of the initial disclosure of this minority disparity study. I personally am serving as a mentee to a local company that does architecture and consulting, so I know the power of that. I would hope that as we move forward, again, we were able to convene 75 builders, developers, contractors, and investors at our initial outing. Since then, we have averaged about anywhere from 30 to 45 builders, developers, and these include subcontractors at all subsequent meetings that we have facilitated, which means, quite frankly, we exist. And I really want to know that, and I thank God for Daryl and for Keith because they've been to several meetings. Daryl has supported many of those meetings and those outreaches. We are here to support the outreach efforts to make sure that we reach our minority goals so that we can have equity and parity in the percentage representation of work that is disclosed at these meetings. Thank you so much, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you, Ms. Henry. Our next speaker.
That was our final speaker.
Okay. All right. So we'll hear from board members now, and I've had a request from Commissioner Maddox to speak. Before we do that, let me, first of all, recognize Ms. Sue Dick, the president of the Tallahassee Area Chamber, and I also want to recognize Rob Palmer. Rob and I served on the original Blueprint Committee. Rob, thank you for being here this afternoon. All right. Commissioner Maddox.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I want to move staff recommendation.
Okay, there's a motion by Commissioner Maddox, seconded by the mayor. Any questions, comments? Okay.
I'd like to comment.
I like to. We'll go to you after Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner Proctor.
I want to thank the BBMC, Antonio Jefferson, the CC, Capital City Chamber, Trina Tuckerson, and also want to thank Tallahassee Chamber for being here. You guys worked together tremendously, and I think that the nucleus of this was that 10-point plan that BBMC and Capital City Chamber brought together in the workshops that you had over at, I believe it was Tallahassee Mall at the time, where folks were able to come out and express their thoughts about what we're doing here with our MWE department. We don't get to this point without your push, and I don't want you to think that we don't know that and celebrate the good partners you've been. MGT has been a great asset for our community, and to have them right here and be able to do this work for us is tremendous. I want to thank them as well. Staff, Ben, you have a tremendous OEV staff with Keith at the head, as well as your director, Daryl Jones, working with the WE department. So many complimentary folks in the community have talked about just the great things that we're doing and the progress of our MWB department. So I want to give them and you your due diligence as well, your due praise as well. This board, it was brought to us, but it doesn't go anywhere without our affirmative vote. During the, I guess when I was chair, we brought this forward. We were able to put the motions in place, to put these wheels in motion, and actually get to this day. And so I want to thank this board for the support that it showed for the 10-point plan, specifically the disparity study initiative. I think it's really going to push us to the next level when it comes to our MWBE department. Really happy to hear your positive input and thought patterns on our looking at our P card purchases and including that as well. And you think that's a good idea. I look forward to seeing what comes back from that specifically. We have done so much with our MWBE department. And it's been, I think, a highlight of our OEV department itself. I look forward to the continued development and success of the MWBE program. But let me say this. I really want us to understand that so as our minority businesses grow, our community will see the benefit of it. We have to continue to invest. We have to continue to develop. We have to continue to do what's right by those businesses. But one thing that I really want us to work on, and really it comes back to, and I know not all MWBEs can do this. I understand that because of the specificity of what they do. But as I see MWBEs matriculate to primes, it touches my heart because that's what this program is about. And then, like I said, I do understand not everyone can do it. Not everyone can do it because the specialization of what they do may not allow them to do it. But to see that happen, to see our MWBEs build capacity to be able to do that, it moves us in a direction that, quite frankly, other seasoned counties and blueprint boards of sorts or infrastructure boards of sorts can't touch. And so, again, I look forward to continuing to develop this plan and the success of our MWBE department. Thank you to staff, MGT, BBMC, TCC and our Tallahassee Chamber for all the work you guys are doing. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Maddox. Commissioner Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Board Member Proctor.
Commissioners, I think that there's a responsibility that falls on us, and I've heard the remarks, all positive from everyone who has spoken. I don't feel the way none of you all feel about our MBE program at all. I was looking at our language that says the underlying premise in commissioning this study is improving access to contracting and procurement opportunities to increase minority and women-owned businesses' share in the community's economic growth and prosperity. And I want to thank Dr. Seaman for the thoroughness with which y'all's expertise is built around, and I'm trusting your numbers. When I look at the numbers, I don't see us meeting those words, expanding that growth. And when you look at here in the midst of Black History Month, what blacks are doing through the governments that we on, the City of Tallahassee and our OEV office, if you're looking at the take number, it's just not there. We have failed, even though for 10 of us, the African-American vote is absolutely needed for 10 of us to sit at this table. But we find African-American voters during that season of election. But we have failed to go after and to find and cultivate African-American businesses. And I know y'all well-seasoned experts and know the law. I'm not talking about the process, I'm talking about the money. And the money is not being delivered to our communities. I want to just stick inside of what Council Dr. Seaman has mentioned. I won't go outside. I want to stick within your verbal comments. Going to the P-card information on attachment 1, page 51 of 150, there is sadness here that when you look through those bullets, 0.03%. Construction shows the utilization of MWBE firms with 1.69%, with payments going to African-American and non-minority business 1.66 and 0.03. The gentleman from the architectural engineering firm, Mr. Johnson, utilization of MWBE firms for engineering and architect is 0.0%, all for African-American firms. Now, I think 0.20 is 1/5%. With 35% African-Americans in this community, in the vote that makes a difference in all of our elections, 0.20% is not getting it, does not translate. Our professional services is 0.18%, all of which went to African Americans for professional services. I don't know what 0.18% is, but I'm relying on Dr. Seaman, who has shared how expert they are, and I trust. He's done this. It's about my 5th or 6th. And I've been with you all for about 5 disparity studies, at least 4, maybe 5. And I trust you all in what you're saying. What you're sharing with this commission is that African-American businessman and woman is doing very, very bad. Other services utilized under the city shows African-American firms accounted for 0.04%. Materials and supplies, our African-American firms accounted for 0.84. We're beneath a whole percent. Sharecropping was really a bad experience. And when we, as African-Americans during this Black History Month, were slaves, we had better credit scores as slaves. as sharecroppers, we owed somebody, and we really had poor credit scores, and we never could catch up. We owed. And it seems that for the taxes we pay and what's reciprocated to our businesses, y'all, the numbers, I'm trusting Dr. Seaman's numbers, it's not there. The blueprint card speaks for itself on page 52 of 150. I won't belabor the point, but you see the paltry amounts of money relative to the total volume. This is a shame. I think that, Dr. Seaman, it occurred to me recently that they're likely, I'm pondering y'all's thoughts, and are you running into anything across the country where we had MWBE? Do you think there'll be a new category, maybe the LGBTQ, that will come online for special? How is that faring across the country?
So that's a very good question, Commissioner Proctor. LGBTQ, it's a new kind of, I guess, classification and disparity studies. The data, to be honest with you, hasn't caught up with it. It is a protected class under the Supreme Court. I believe it was maybe 3 years ago now. But we are just starting to see that the issues within LGBTQ is that, on essence, it's a race and gender neutral. But it is being investigated, and we are seeing that more and more entities want to look at it, but we're waiting to make sure that the data catches up to it in order to be accurately analyze it.
Very good. It's my perception that that movement will translate into an economic force that will be competitive as a category now. And with what I am seeing, I want to leave Leon County's P card out as well on page 53 of 150. In Leon County, fellow commissioners, the African-American community has not gotten 1% of anything. And these are just the numbers. And I'm so hopeful that here in the 21st century, you will feel like I feel that this is not significant. And if we as commissioners went out and worked as hard to improve these numbers, as we go to receive black votes, just maybe we could get to be a 1% in this community. This is essentially about 97+% white male businesses is who we're dealing with. And I'm looking. You talking to me?
I think he must not have been muted. Go ahead.
Oh, I want to hear him. The disparity study recommendations that we're looking at with all of these things, just looking at what Dr. Seaman shared with us commissioners, look at Leon County, look at our prime utilization for professional services. We've gone from 2019 for African Americans, looking at the City of Tallahassee, you've gone from 1.66 to 1.98. Blueprint is 0%, and Leon County is 0% for 2022. That's unacceptable, Leon County. 0% for professional services. Leon County, for other services, those numbers look better in 2022. For utilization of materials and supplies, here again, Leon County, look at that number. In 2022, we're at 0%. That's shameful. We do better in our own salaries, what we recoup, than what the business community recoups from our government. And collectively, we ought not to take a larger share than those who are providing this range of services. Mayor, say to you that to not have aspirational goals in this study's recommendation troubles me. And it troubles me because, number one, not to have an aspirational goal is, in a sense, for a community not to have hope. There's nothing to hope for. Secondly, it gives our staff, as weak as our numbers are, I'm talking about the dollars spent. I'm not disagreeing with the form the process, the proficiency of how we do it. Can it stand up to the court? I'm agreeing with everybody else. Y'all do an outstanding job. I'm talking about the money that goes to the street. It gives our staff no specific target. You don't know when you've and when you've not. And it also eliminates an evaluative criteria, which we need to have in an area that's just so it none delivers. I could truthfully say, and no desire to make an inflammatory comment at all, but we really could get along in this community. It probably would come out cheaper than to have the apparatus of the OEV's office and the WMB office and to pay for the disparity study compared to the dollars that go out. We really don't need it. That's an analysis over 25 years of me being at this table, looking at these numbers. It's not a reckless statement. It's just that 25 years, Mr. Chairman, I have a sitting view up close. We're just not committed to this working, or either it can't work through the process which is in place. It strangulates opportunity. And then finally, I apologize for taking a little time. This area very soft in my heart, and it's been for a number of years. We need more robust efforts, and we must push for greater percentages for African Americans, although we're eliminating. It hurts me. We never not had an aspirational goal. We're going from not having an aspirational goal to this recommendation that we're paying for, saying that the African American can get possibly more opportunity without the goal. Yet, the other language suggests that you cannot set a goal where the numbers, utilization numbers, are not in place. What comes first, the chicken or the egg? This is hell. And I'm not supporting the good motion on the floor because it does check off on all the things proficient by what we've done required by law. But what we haven't come up with is a ground game that changes the economics in our community. And until I can see something that speaks to major shakeup and change, that African Americans can receive more than a percentage of one, I can't support this. It's not working. It's just not. And my own four parents, I have houses of the Proctor family built by my kinfolk who put love in this community, tears, sweat, labor in this community. I know that the LGBTQ category is coming. And when it comes, it's going to supplant these other categories sitting here, trust and believe. And we're talking about what we can't do. We're satisfied. I ain't. I'm not going to support this motion because I don't want anyone to be misled that after all of these years, I'm happy with the Black community receiving less than 1% of the dollars of the city, the county, and the OEV. I want to be clear that I believe the processes have been done splendidly well, but the amount of money trickling is not sufficient to the needs. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Proctor. We've got Commissioner O'Keefe or Board Member O'Keefe in queue, followed by the Mayor Pro Tem, Board Member Williams-Cox, and then Board Member Matlow. Board Member O'Keefe, you're up.
Thank you so much, Chairman. I want to give credit where credit is due, especially where I have had my own criticisms of Blueprint. What I hear from the Capital City Chamber of Commerce, the local business members who have spoke, the Big Bend Minority Chamber of Commerce, and the experts at MGT is that the right voices have been given more hearing and that we are taking our cues from the people who would be receiving most of the success of anything we implement. And I want to give Mr. Keith Bowers, Mr. Gerald Jones, and Mr. Ben Pingree credit as well for putting this together. And while we are certainly not where we need to be, I like the procedure and policy improvements that are suggested, and especially bringing in the pre-P-card data when we see our next 5-year update or more recent update. I'm certainly hopeful that we will see significant improvement there. So again, thank you for everyone being involved, and especially for making sure that the right voices are in the room, and that's where we take our lead from. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Board Member O'Keefe. Mayor Pro Tem, Board Member Williams-Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me first start by saying thank you. Thank you to MGT, the work you've done through the years and even now, to the chambers, who I've always just said, I just want y'all to please work together, and you are doing a splendid job of working together, and our community reflects that. I would like to say, you know, I like data, and you all have given us plenty of data to take a look at. One of the things that I like to say is that I'm looking forward to more complete data on the P-card purchases, and I know that the system that has been recommended will help us with that. And I will say from my office, I only use my P-card to pay my cell phone bill, Verizon. I don't think any minority businesses are offering that service. And I don't buy office supplies because we have it already. So we're limited on what we can use the P-cards for. So I'm not sure how we can leverage even more so going outside of the usual things that we use P-cards for. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of the data, what the rest of the story is on P-card purchases, so to speak. We know that in our small municipalities, it's going to be a minuscule amount. The state P-card purchases that's where the money really is. And so I don't know how we get them to participate in this process or look at what we've done and do the same or what have you. Maybe one process can feed the other. But that's where the real P-card money is, in my opinion. Commissioner Proctor, I think we got to start somewhere. Okay, so right now it doesn't look like we have spent money and a lot of money in a lot of places, but we got to start somewhere and work our way up. I haven't been around as long as you, so you paint a real picture. But I've been in this community enough to know that closed mouths don't get fed. And what we've got to do is we've got to make sure that all the tools that are available or become available through innovation and whatever collaboration to make sure that we're doing our best to make sure that we spread the wealth around for women, minority-owned businesses, those that are in place now and those that will come in place, and to also look at how to create opportunities such as breaking up projects so that those who may not have the capacity to take on the big parts of projects, that they are able to get in and build capacity so that they can then work their way up to becoming prime. And I think that has been a missed opportunity in the past. Another missed opportunity has been, and I've been victim of this, as a small minority women-owned business, being included in packets to win contracts and bids, and then being removed. So if this is an opportunity for us to fix some of those things, and I believe that it is, I am very hopeful that we're headed in the right direction, but we've got to start somewhere. I think that now all eyes are on us, just to quote Tupac, just because I like that. All eyes are on us, and we have the data, the information that is defensible in court, right? That's what y'all said, right? That we have something now that we can abide by. The chambers, the minority chambers and the Tallahassee chamber are going to make sure and that we follow this and that we do what we need to do. The minority vendors in this room, and Christine Henry's gonna make sure, because she's read this name front and back, I'm sure. We're gonna make sure that we adhere to what we said we're gonna do here. So I am hopeful that moving forward, these numbers are gonna improve. And we're gonna have an improved method of collecting the data so that we can validate it and get back to it. So I wanna just say thank you. Thank you for helping to shine this light even further. I was here for this study, and then for this update. Thank you very much, and Dr. Siemens, congratulations on your retirement. I somehow feel that you won't be going very far because the next study they're gonna probably pull you in, but your price is gonna be more expensive because you're coming out of retirement. But thank you all for what you've done, and thank you to Keith Bowers, Daryl Jones, Shanae Wilkes, LaTanya Rappington, Ben Pingree, Susan Dawson, Autumn Calder, everybody who has played a part in helping us move our community forward. Thank you.
Okay. Board Member Matlow, you're in queue. Then we've got you on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do agree with several of the additional recommendations that are being made. I think they'll be helpful to adopt. I wanted to caution us, Commissioner, when we talk about the future of expanding to LGBT businesses. I think it's important that we don't pit marginalized communities against marginalized communities when 95%, as you stated, contracts are going to white men. I mean that's where we need to spread the wealth from are the people who are getting the majority of the contracts and make sure it's being distributed more fairly. As we see in the study, a 36% black population, and as you correctly stated, we're at 1%, less than 1% in a lot of these categories, which I also don't think is acceptable. And it's more than being aspirational, it's being more intentional in how we're spending money and how some of these things are going out. I did have a few questions. From the recommendation, one of the statements about a specific Black-owned aspirational goal, it said setting specific goals for African-American-owned businesses may reduce utilization. I just wanted, what would reduce the utilization based on that?
So, Commissioner, what we're saying is that currently the utilization allows there to be a higher ceiling that it would be, based on that 1%, 2% goals. It's a kind of a metric that we have to be careful as well with the legalities of it. You don't want to go so high that it's not realistic, and that just puts you in a legal liability position. So you want to increase it, and that at the current way, it is flexible enough to increase it. And if you bring it down to what it may be realistic right now, it would reduce it for that specific African-American category.
Okay. And what is that now?
I think if you look on, let me see. We may need to get back to you, Commissioner, specific. I don't have that information in front of me.
I think it was on one of these pages as well.
Page 4 of 11, I believe, in your material.
Oh, I thought he was asking about the African-American utilization. My apologies.
For the goals.
The 2019 consolidated goals page? Okay. So between...
So currently right now on, for example, construction, an MBE would be 5%, construction subcontractor, an MBE would be 14%, A&E 8%, 5%, 6%, and then materials and supplies, goods and supplies 1% for minority-owned businesses.
And I see the prime utilization numbers as well as the P-card numbers. Do we have where we are on these consolidated goals collectively?
Are you talking about where we are with the utilization compared to those?
Correct, yes.
We would have to, it's in the report, and we can pull that out for you.
Okay. You don't need to do it now. So, I mean, the only other question I wanted to address was when we look at prime utilization, we see growth in Leon County, we see 1.77% growth in Blueprint, but at the City of Tallahassee, we see, I'm looking at the Black utilization, 1.05 to 1.09. Do we know why the city of Tallahassee isn't seeing the same growth as the county in Blueprint?
If I may. At present, the City of Tallahassee is undergoing the full implementation of the B2G Now contract compliance software. Our report, to be frank, the way we compare is not accurate because we do not capture subcontracting data. As you can imagine, the county has already had that subcontracting software for more than a decade. For now the city to undergo that same process, as you can imagine, at the volume that exists, the implementation has taken longer. So subsequently, what we're seeing in terms of the analysis is only direct spending and not subcontracting spending. Once that full implementation occurs, we'll then get a more accurate picture of what we know has been the city's impact with minority subcontracting. Again, that's why the methodology is so important to explain, because of the methods by which they're able to draw the conclusions that they do, although the data is not the same for all three jurisdictions.
Okay. Do you have any idea of the time frame on when we would know that?
It is. We are hoping that we'll be prepared by the beginning of next fiscal year.
Okay, great.
That is our intention.
That's all my comments. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Board Member Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Studies of the past are emerging in my mind, but I'm going to say that our aspirational numbers, our utilization only in maybe 2.5 categories exceed the aspirational number. Is that accurate, Fred? Over the years, our utilization has actually only exceeded in maybe 2 categories, maybe 3, over the years. So to kill the aspirational as if it's going to somehow bankrupt our ability to use utilization, but what the court is saying is that we cannot exceed utilization, period. But why can't we have aspiration? I really don't feel good that this is a no-go with you all and your recommendation coming to us that we can't have aspiration. Aspiration has never gotten in the target has not gotten in the way of delivery. We've not seldom overutilized beyond what we have set as the aspiration. And we ought to congratulate ourselves, because when you set an aspiration, we should not stop at the mere aspiration, but exceed it. But not even to have one, son, I'll give you $2, you make a C. $5 if you make a B. That's all right, son. I ain't giving you enough. Don't worry about it. Just go to school. Just go to school. I don't care what you make. That's what we're saying. And it concerns me very much, Commissioner Cox, that over the years, yours was quintessential, hopeful, and optimistic view. I've heard that speech a long time at this table. And I am saying to us that the province of city coffers, Leon County's coffers, and OEV, 97% of this money is for white male businesses. It's been that way. It has not changed. And there is nothing in these recommendations to correct that. These are the facts. I am standing on history over the last 25, and we have not exceeded that, and we can't get past it. And whoever is comfortable and satisfied with that, I mean, that's fine, because we all look through our own eyeballs. But that's not good enough. And I guess the question is, what is the training of our procurement offices? I wanted in call some years ago for the county's procurement director, the late Mr. Keith Rogers, to be fired because I didn't know if he was a racist, or do we hire that in these departments? What is the training and sensitivity? What is it that changes the lens and the focus of the money getting on the street? What needs to happen? Because the numbers never change, study after study. I've seen them. I'm not here clowning on y'all. I done seen these things. And we're hopeful like Diane is. But it will not change. I think that we need to have our procurement offices, officers, directors, and them offices. If it's we don't have a goal now. We don't have aspiration. But if we had one, it ought to be pushed from the top that we mean business by that. and that all of that sensitizing ought to be instituted in those places where money flows out of these buildings. Right now, I don't even know who the county's procurement director is, because it's insignificant to the outcome of what happens to black businesses. It really is.
Thank you. Board Member Proctor, Board Member Maddox.
Thank you. Some point, just for understanding. Team is, as I understand it, we've never had an aspirational goal. But looking at the numbers and contemplating what you've seen, thinking that we could move in that direction.
I would say at this point, it wouldn't be prudent to do that until you actually have the B2G implemented into it and actually see what it is. What we're saying is these numbers, when there is no monitoring, that's what you typically
What
do.
I'm saying, but after the B2G implemented, you would say it would be a good idea, or we could move in that direction.
Yes, you could. Yes, you could.
If I may also clarify,
Yes.
the numbers that are reported for the purposes of this disparity study are without the lens of a process for capturing the information. Per the IA board's direction, there was a ask for the analysis of P cards. However, there was no methodology in place to secure that information in a way that it represented race and gender spending. Any one of us who have P cards do not tag our purchases based upon race or gender. So when they come up with the analysis that they have provided, it would be based upon more than likely a cross-reference of already existing certified firms to make that determination, because the businesses that we're utilizing do not self-identify based upon race or gender. When we put in the new P card module, as was described as a part of this recommendation and its next steps, everyone who holds a P card will then have to tag those purchases based upon that type of spending, and then we'll have a more accurate picture of what is described as that 8% level of spending across all 3 jurisdictions of P card spending. We will then have a more accurate representation of how those purchases fall into the across the expanse of our spending with P cards.
Thanks, sir. I think, but first let me say there's not one thing that Commissioner Proctor said that's not true. The way we have done our P card spending in the past. But that's why we're here. That's why the study was done. That's why we're moving in this direction. I think Commissioner Williams-Cox said it best. Mayor Pro Tem Williams-Cox said it best when she talked about the hope. I don't think it's just a hope thing. I think it's a demand. If we do this, when we do this next time, if we see these same numbers, then Commissioner Proctor, I would say we have indeed failed. But ignorance by virtue of not having a process to have the numbers speaks not to as much failure as a lack of attention to something that's been a problem for the 25 years you've been here. I would say that the chamber's bringing it forward and insisting that we do this or have this process put us in a position that we have seen something that we cannot unsee. That's why we're here, to not unsee it. Put a process in place whereby now that we see it, it will be fixed and we won't have this problem again. I fully expect, and I say this to staff, as they work with us, I fully expect that when we put the numbers in place, put the system in place, have an aspirational goal, that the P card piece in particular will not look like this. Now we're talking, what I think we did here, we got bogged down in the P card piece, which is a problem. But we should also celebrate the utilization piece in the process, and the progress, and the processes that we have there. I don't want to get so bogged down in P card that we didn't have a process for, nor even try to put together a process until now, that we don't celebrate the fact that in utilization, I like to say that we're doing pretty good. And now, Director Jones has said that the city's process is not, or the numbers aren't quite as accurate as they could be because of missing pieces there. But I'll tell you this right now, when I look at the county's numbers, what we've done, I'm pretty proud. I am pretty doggone proud. So I'm looking forward to seeing, like I said before, the P card piece catch up with the utilization pieces that we have there. But I cannot indict staff, and whether it be city, county, procurement staff, or OEV or MWBE, because we didn't have a process in place for P cards. that they didn't have better numbers for us here today. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Maddox said that I was wrong about
Proctor,
something.
Let me go to Commissioner,
Not telling the truth about something.
let me go to Commissioner, Board Member Caban.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just have a question for MGT, more of a clarification.
Okay.
So from my understanding, the only reason why we don't have an aspirational goal is because we are timid of or scared of legal compliance by not hitting a goal that we ourselves set internally.
So we're going back to an aspirational goal specifically for African-American vendors, correct?
Correct.
The reason for it is the fact is that the data just isn't, what we're looking at the data, it's not recommended from a legal point of view, you're absolutely correct, but also from the lens of what is going to happen when we actually do implement a specific one. If you see a lot of the utilization or the goals for each of the individual ones, you have 5% MBE, construction and so on for all of that. The fear, the probable cause of it is, your utilization is going to have to come down, your goals, because it's a kind of a calculation that you do. So if your goal is, for example, 14% for, MBEs and subcontracting in construction, there is no metric to get it from 1% to 14% realistically in that kind of a short turnaround. That's when you get yourself into some of the legal troubles, yes, but also just the realism of what's going to happen. So you could set it, but it's not going to happen in the way that you want it from the data.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments? This has been a very fruitful discussion, and what I would add is that my experience with this issue goes back to 1990 when I was elected to the Leon County School Board. And I would get approached by people like Mr. Frank Williams, the late Mr. Eddie Gallen, and they would tell me, Mr. Richardson, we can't get zero work with Leon County Schools. Fred, you were involved back then as well. And it was my commitment to them in our committee to make sure that the Leon County School Board had an MWS, or it was MBE at the time. And we did. Board Member Jones, I don't know what happened to it. Maybe you can look into that for us.
It predates me.
But we did have that program through Leon County Schools. And I can tell you, based on where we are today, we have made significant progress. What we have done is legally defensible. We can't ignore that. We have not had a legal challenge to anything that we've done up to this point. I think we have to look at, when you talk about percentages, we have to look at the availability in the market. There are going to be some areas, y'all, where there are not African-American owned businesses. There are, where each of these entities contract. We have to look at capacity. We don't want to put a minority or woman-owned business in a position where they could potentially fail if they don't have the capacity to be successful with the project. We don't want to just give it to them and we have a bidding process that we have to go through to make them eligible for the contract. That's required by law. We can't get around that. So there are issues that impact that we have to be aware of as well. We haven't talked about the exact dollar amounts that have been involved. We look at percentages, but 1% of $10 million, that's a hell of a lot of money. And I'm just throwing those numbers out there. That's not anything to sneeze at or be ashamed of. If you've got minority and women-owned businesses making that kind of money off our local government entities. Can we do better? I think that this board has indicated its commitment to doing so through this study and the direction that we have given staff in each entity, that we want to see it done better. We are working with our local chambers. They are providing assistance and consult to minority and women-owned businesses to get them prepared to be competitive in this market. And so, like I said, are we where we necessarily need to be? I can tell you we are a hell of a lot farther beyond than some of the other cities that, or municipalities and counties that we could be compared to. I'm proud of where we are based on where I began with this, when 99.9%, Fred, I believe in our first disparity study with the school district, 99.9% of the contracts that were let by the school district back then went to white male-owned businesses, 99.9. And so, like I said, we've got work to do in many different spheres to start moving these numbers, in addition to the P cards. Board Member Maddox talked about the utilization. But I think what this board has said here today in our respective commissions is that we are committed to making that happen because it benefits the entire community when you've got minority and women-owned businesses that are able to employ people to work for them and to contribute to the various causes in the community. That's what we're trying to achieve, and make our community economically strong by including those businesses. So we've got work to do, but I think it's clear to this community that that's the direction that we're headed. And I hope that by the time I leave this commission, that we will have accomplished that and can be proud of where we are as a community in terms of including everyone in the economic pie. So if there is...
Mr. Chairman, I have a point of legal information question.
Board Member Proctor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Council, could you tell us the state of affairs in our state right now? How safe are these policies? I've been reading about the elimination of DEI. I've been reading about other hostile reactions to the progress of even just the awareness of information. Are these programs that we're working on, our policies, backed by state law, or you all have cited this being under the Federal 11th Circuit, and are we entrusted under the legal ideas of federal judges, or if the legislature this session decided to say, we don't want this right here, these kinds of MBEs, WMBEs, to become unlawful in the state of Florida, would this program have a leg to stand in federal court?
Well, what we're saying is the way that the courts are right now, it has been accepted in the 11th Circuit, and we would say this program is held.
Notwithstanding the legislature went on a
we can't say anything about if the legislature strikes it or if other laws are stricken, we couldn't say what would happen to it because that's outside of our purview.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, thank you very much. The climate that we enjoy in Tallahassee is very ambiguous with respect to the total interest of our state doing what we're attempting and have been attempting to do for several years. And I'm very mindful that even as we look at this, how long will this remain a lawful process? Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other questions, comments?
Mr. Chair, if I could just say real quickly to the preacher who just finished preaching, saying what he just said, we do good anyway. We may get stricken down, but we do good anyway.
Right.
So that's what we're going to keep doing, do good, because our residents expect that of us. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. Our next meeting is scheduled for March 9th. Yeah. Oh. Okay. We got Commissioner Cummings in queue. I was just made aware of the fact that you wanted to speak. So we'll let her. Commissioner Cummings, Board Member Cummings. Board Member Cummings.
May be muted, ma'am.
Chauncey, can you call her and see if you can get through to her? I appreciate everybody's patience. We want to give her an opportunity to have her input. Yeah, yeah.
Commissioner?
Yeah,
Yes, everybody can hear you now.
we've got you on speaker. We can hear you in the chamber.
I apologize. I've been trying to get in. I'm sorry. I don't know what's happening.
That's okay. You don't have to apologize.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I just wanted to weigh in and just initially thank Mr. Seaman and his team. And I also want to just commend our Deputy Director, Darrell Jones, and Director Keith Bowers, and all their staff for working together with this disparity study. I also just appreciate all the chambers, the minority chambers, Big Bend chambers, for working and providing information on this disparity study. It's a great undertaking. I've had the privilege of working within MGT in another career in providing some legal direction on some studies that they have done, so I know how tedious it is, Mr. Chair. And I appreciate the analysis they provided as well as the documentation that they provided. But what I'm hearing, Mr. Chair, is that as far as the numbers are concerned, and from a legal standpoint, perhaps we cannot establish aspirational goals to increase participation, especially in the construction area. And that's where the money is, of our MBEs. Is that accurate? And I'd like to ask that question. Is that pretty accurate, Mr. Pettigrew, as you understand it right now?
Yes.
There are already existing aspirational targets, goals from 2019. The only area where we are not ascribing aspirational goals is for P-card utilization.
No. Madam Commissioner, are you asking if the new study with all 9 years does not support an increase of aspirational goals that exist at this time?
Right.
Yes,
right.
The answer to that question is yes.
Okay. And then I'm wondering, with assistance from legal, from our own blueprint legal staff, as well as direction, on the person case and subsequent cases, if it would be feasible, if we could, look at this in a little more depth and perhaps maybe have a workshop on it. Because my concern is this: we received the numbers, they're dismal, but we have reached some goal that has been established, but we can't project beyond what we have. We can't project aspirational goals to increase minority women participation. And to me, that increase would translate into more dollars going to these contractors. Now, I feel good about the fact that what's recommended was the pre-bid process where prime contractors and the subs, minority subs, can come together and perhaps establish a relationship. But my concern, Mr. Chair, is that even though this is a good report, acceptable report, but what do we do? Is there any recommendation, or can we, as the IA board, make a recommendation on how to move forward and how to make the numbers work, make it better for those that have traditionally been been excluded. Now, I recognize that this report shows great emphasis on the part of OED for inclusion and not exclusion. But when you look at the percentages of participation, and I'm not looking at the P card, I'm looking at the overall. I think P card analysis is just a very minor. But my concern is what we as a board can do to address the concern, number one. And number two, do we have a record of any minority business enterprises that have complained? We address complaints about being excluded and not being included in the greater procurement process. So in other words, I'm concerned that we don't just receive this report and not take any action, or is that the recommendation from legal for MGT and our own legal staff?
I'm going to ask Mr. Pingree if he would answer that for you, Board Member Cummings.
I think the answer on the legal question, it has been reviewed by your legal team, the city's legal team, the county's legal team, MGT's legal team. Just a couple of thoughts, if it's helpful, and I hear the concern about moving forward and also the potential for a workshop. I know that to the county commission meeting within the next month or two, to the city commission meeting within the next month or two, and to this blueprint meeting at your next meeting, Daryl, the OEV team, is going to be bringing back an update, not with the, and I'm looking at, you can't see it, but I'm looking at the MGT team, not with their methodology of sampling, which is legally defensible and fine, but with actual spend data that includes everything for the last two most recent fiscal years. I think once that report is given to each of the respective bodies and you see how it's being utilized in place, potentially that might, if it's helpful for this conversation today, it might help then thereafter having a discussion of a workshop. Again, if that's helpful. You had mentioned where we go from today. The motion that's on the table, Madam Commissioner, is one that would implement 6 additional new steps into your policy to further increase the utilization of minority and small and women-owned businesses, and then have that actually laid out into your policy with the full understanding that every year that goes by, even before the next disparity study is needed 5 years from now, we constantly look at our performance and can make further modifications. You may have had another question that might have been Daryl related. I don't know if I missed it.
So I appreciate that. I certainly wholeheartedly support those 6 recommendations, including the pre-bid process. But I guess my comments are more toward at what point can we become more deliberate? Perhaps after you all provide information to the county commission, city commission, as you indicated, maybe that might be a point where we decide whether or not the workshop, to sort of move the needle.
Yeah, that sounds like that would be the appropriate time.
Okay.
Board Member Cummings, if you're okay with that.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, all right. Board Member Minor. Then we're going to bring this to a close, y'all. We've had enough conversation, I believe, at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to reiterate what many have been saying today. I want to thank MGT for their excellent report on this. I want to thank the OEV staff for a job well done. I'm supporting this motion because of these 6 recommendations. Each one of them is very well thought out and will help us increase diversity representation among purchases for Leon County, Blueprint, the county, and the city of Tallahassee. So for that reason, these 6 recommendations are very well thought out. I think they will help us toward that goal. So I'm supporting the motion. Thank you, sir.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the floor. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Commissioner
Make-
O'Keefe,
make-
can you confirm whether you were in favor or against?
Sure, this is Commissioner O'Keefe in favor.
In favor.
Thank you. And Commissioner Cummings? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so the motion carries 11 to 1. All right. Anything for the good of the order? Okay, hearing none, our next meeting again is on March 9th, and at this point, we will stand adjourned.
Good meeting.